At my son's wedding, he called me just a truck driver. I have driven trucks most of my life. Long roads. Long nights. I missed birthdays, funerals, and sleep, so my children would never lack. On the day my son got married, I wore my best clothes and sat quietly among strangers. When it was time for introductions, he smiled and said my name. Then he laughed and added, "He's just a truck driver." The hall laughed. I did not. I stayed seated, because a father learns very early how to swallow pain. Welcome, this is Voice of Deborah. If this story speaks to you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Richard. I am 61 years old now. I have been driving trucks since I was 23. That is 38 years on the road. 38 years of diesel fumes, rest stops, and motels that smell like old cigarettes and bleach. I did not start out wanting to be a truck driver. I wanted to be a teacher. I liked history. I liked the idea of standing in front of young people and helping them see the world differently. I even went to college for 2 years. But then my father got sick, and my mother needed help with the bills. I was the oldest. So I left school and found work that paid quickly. Driving paid well if you were willing to stay out long enough. So I stayed out. Weeks at a time. Sometimes a month. I would call home from payphones, then later from my cell. I would hear my wife's voice, tired but steady, and my son's voice in the background. His name is Edward. He was 3 when I started driving long haul. I married young. Her name was Evelyn. We met in high school. She was smart, organized, the kind of woman who could make a plan and stick to it. I thought we would grow old together. I thought if I worked hard enough, gave enough, it would be enough. But distance does strange things to people. You think love can survive anything if the bills are paid and the kids are fed. You think sacrifice speaks for itself. But sometimes sacrifice is silent. And silence over years becomes a kind of absence. Evelyn and I divorced when Edward was 12. She said I was never home. She said the man she married had disappeared somewhere between Missouri and Ohio. I did not argue. I signed the papers. I kept driving. Edward stayed with her. I paid child support on time every month. I called when I could. I came home for his birthdays when the routes allowed it. But I was not there for the small things. The scraped knees. The school projects. The quiet nights when a boy just needs his father in the next room. He grew up mostly without me. I knew that. I accepted it. I told myself it was the cost of keeping him clothed, keeping him in a good school, keeping a roof over his head. Evelyn remarried when Edward was 15. A man named Greg. An accountant. He wore ties and worked from home. He was there for dinner every night. I did not resent Greg. I was grateful in a way. Someone was there when I could not be. Edward went to college. A good one. He studied business. I paid what I could, though Evelyn and Greg covered most of it. He graduated with honors. I was proud. I drove 18 hours straight to make it to his graduation. I sat in the back of the auditorium, alone, and watched him walk across that stage. He saw me afterward. We shook hands. He thanked me. It felt formal, like thanking a distant uncle. The years passed quietly after that. Edward got a job at a marketing firm in the city. He did well. He bought a car, then a condo. He called me on my birthday and on Christmas. The conversations were short, polite. He would ask how the road was. I would ask how work was. Then we would run out of things to say. I kept driving. I thought about retiring, but I did not know what else I would do. The truck was the only thing I had ever been good at. The only thing that made sense. Then, 2 years ago, Edward called and told me he was engaged. Her name was Simone. He said she was beautiful, smart, ambitious. He said the wedding would be in the spring. He said he wanted me there. I said I would be there. I marked the date on my calendar. I requested the time off 6 months in advance. I bought a new suit. I had not worn a suit in over a decade. I went to a shop and let the man measure me. I did not recognize myself in the mirror. I looked old. My shoulders were still broad, but my face had thinned. My hair was almost all gray. The wedding was in a hotel ballroom 2 hours from where Edward lived. It was expensive. You could tell. Everything was white and gold. There were flowers everywhere. A live band. A photographer who never stopped moving. I arrived early. I did not know anyone. Evelyn was there with Greg. She smiled when she saw me, but it was the kind of smile you give someone you used to know. We did not speak much. Greg shook my hand and said it was good to see me. I believed him. I sat at a table near the back. There were place cards. Mine said Richard Calloway. No title. No relation. Just my name. Edward looked happy. Simone was beautiful, just as he had said. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows. People cried. I did not. I just watched. The reception began. There was dancing, toasts, laughter. I sat and ate quietly. A few people at my table tried to make conversation. I answered politely, but I did not have much to say. Then came the introductions. The best man stood and began introducing the important people. The parents. The grandparents. The siblings. He introduced Evelyn and Greg. He said they had supported Edward his whole life. People clapped. Evelyn smiled and waved. Then he introduced me. And of course Edward's father, Richard Calloway. I stood. People clapped lightly. I nodded and sat back down. But Edward was still standing. He had the microphone. He was smiling. Yeah, he said. That's my dad. He's a truck driver. People chuckled. It was not mean yet. Just a fact. But then Edward laughed. And he added, just a truck driver really. On the road his whole life. The room laughed harder. Someone whistled. Someone else clapped. I stayed seated. My hands were on the table. I did not look up. Edward kept talking. He said something about how I was always gone, how Greg had been more of a father to him, how he was grateful for the people who actually showed up. The room went quieter. A few people glanced at me. I did not move. When Edward finished, the best man took the microphone back and moved on to the next speech. I sat there. My chest felt heavy. My throat tight. But I did not leave. A father learns very early how to swallow pain. I stayed for the rest of the reception. I did not speak to Edward. I did not speak to anyone. When the cake was cut, I stood in the back and watched. When people began to leave, I left too. I drove home in the dark. The highway was empty. I had driven that same highway 1,000 times. But that night it felt different. Longer. I thought about all the nights I had been away. All the Christmas mornings I missed. All the times I called and heard Edward's voice get smaller on the other end of the line. I thought about the money I sent. The payments I never missed. The hours I worked so he could have what I never did. And I thought about the way he had looked at me that night. Like I was a stranger. Like I was nothing. I did not hear from Edward for 3 months after the wedding. I did not call him either. I did not know what to say. Then one afternoon, I got a call from Evelyn. Her voice was quiet. "Richard," she said, "we need to talk." She told me that Edward had been in an accident. A car accident. He was in the hospital. He was stable, but there had been complications. Internal injuries. He would need surgery. He would need time to recover. I asked where he was. She told me. I got in my truck and drove. When I got to the hospital, Evelyn was in the waiting room. Greg was there too. Simone was pacing near the window. Evelyn stood when she saw me. For a moment, she just looked at me. Then she hugged me. It was brief, but it was real. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded. Simone walked over. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. "He's in surgery," she said. "They said it could be a few more hours." I sat down. I did not ask questions. I just waited. Greg brought me coffee. We did not talk much. We just sat. Hours passed. Finally, a doctor came out. He said the surgery had gone well. Edward was stable. He would need to stay in the hospital for a while, but he would recover. Simone started crying. Evelyn held her. The doctor said we could see him, but only one at a time. Simone went first. Then Evelyn. Then Greg. Then it was my turn. Edward was awake, but barely. He had tubes in his arms. His face was pale. He looked small in that hospital bed. I stood at the foot of the bed. I did not know what to say. He looked at me. His eyes were heavy. "Dad," he said. His voice was rough. I stepped closer. "I'm here," I said. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were wet. "I'm sorry," he said. I shook my head. "Don't." "No," he said. "I need to say it. What I said at the wedding. It was wrong." I did not respond. "I was trying to be funny," he said. "I was trying to impress people. I didn't think about what it would do to you." I pulled a chair closer and sat down. "You were right," I said quietly. "I wasn't there. I was on the road. I missed everything." He shook his head, but I kept talking. "I thought if I kept you fed, kept you safe, kept the bills paid, that would be enough. But it wasn't. And I'm sorry for that." He looked at me for a long time. "You did what you could," he said. "I did what I knew how to do," I said. "That doesn't mean it was enough." We sat in silence for a while. The machines beeped softly. "I want to do better," he said finally. "You will," I said. Edward recovered slowly. It took months. I visited when I could. I took fewer routes. I started staying closer to home. Simone and I talked more. She told me things about Edward the first had never known. How he used to ask for me when he was little. How he would wait by the window when I was supposed to come home. How he stopped waiting after a while. She said he never stopped loving me. He just did not know how to reach me. I did not know how to reach him either. But we tried. Small steps. Phone calls that lasted longer. Visits that felt less formal. Slowly, something began to grow back. A year after the accident, Edward and Simone had a son. They named him Daniel. When Edward called to tell me, his voice was different. Softer. "I want you to be in his life," he said. "Really in it. Not just birthdays and holidays." "I will be," I said. And I meant it. I retired 6 months later. I sold the truck. I bought a small house near where Edward and Simone lived. I see Daniel once a week. Sometimes more. He is 2 now. He calls me Papa. When I pick him up, he laughs. When I read to him, he falls asleep in my lap. I did not get to do this with Edward. I will not miss it this time. Edward and I do not talk much about the wedding. But once, late at night after a family dinner, he brought it up. "I think about what I said," he told me. "All the time." "I know," I said. "Do you forgive me?" I looked at him. My son. A man now. A father. "There's nothing to forgive," I said. "You were hurt. You said what you felt. I earned that." "You didn't earn that," he said. "Maybe not," I said. "But I understand it." He nodded. We sat in silence for a while. "I'm proud of you," I said. He looked up. "I should have said it more," I added. "But I am. I always have been." His eyes filled. He nodded again. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too." I am 61 now. I do not drive trucks anymore. I do not miss it. I spend my days with my grandson. I watch him grow. I am there when he falls. I am there when he laughs. I am there. I think about the wedding sometimes. I think about the way Edward looked at me, the way he laughed, the way the room laughed with him. It still hurts. I do not think that will ever go away completely. But I also think about the hospital, about the way he apologized, about the way he reached for me. People make mistakes. sons, fathers. We all do. What matters is whether we stay, whether we try, whether we choose again and again to show up. I was not always there when Edward needed me, but I am here now. And this time I am not leaving. If this story moved you, please share it. Subscribe to Voice of Deborah, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters too.